All right guys, today we're going to be talking about connectors, specifically the Double Diamond 3.5 pound connector available from the Glockstore. So on the table I have one of my competition 34s that hasn't had anything done to the trigger. You can see on the trigger pull gauge, it's pulling right at about 5 pounds right now. That's an average of about 5 pulls. So what we're going to do is install this bad boy and get it running. So connector is going to do two things. A connector has geometry that this is a little bit more aggressive than the stock, which is going to lower the trigger pull weight. And if you look at the sheen on that bad boy, hopefully that's picking up on the camera, it's NP3 coated, which has a natural lubricity, which is going to reduce the friction. So it's going to make a smoother and lighter trigger pull. Now it is going to affect the character of the reset. So we're going to do a stock trigger pull right now. And you guys are just going to imagine and play along with me here. So you can see the take up there and I'm on the wall. It's a somewhat firm wall, but you can see the squish right there rolling through the creep into the brake. And reset is going to be right there. So that's what the trigger looks like. Do it one more. And we're on the wall. Creep, creep, smush, brake. Okay, there it is. So if you've never taken a Glock apart before, what you need is a punch. I'll have a link in the description where you can get your very own punch, but you can just use an Allen key or a Bic pin top or whatever is clever, because these things are so simple to take apart that you don't really need much in the way of tools. So you're going to punch out these 2 pins on a Gen 5. There will be 3 pins on your 4s and your 3s. There's 1. There's 2. Pry out your locking block. I'm trying not to launch this. There we go. Lift out that, pull out your trigger assembly. There we go. The connector is right there, so I'm gonna have to take the trigger bar off. And you can see the OEM trigger shoe right there. So if you turn it over, there's a hole for your punch on the back, so you can just put your punch in there and push. Good grief, it's in there pretty good. There we go. And there is our OEM. I'll set that aside. I'm going to take the Glockstore, and you can see the oil on this. So this was lubricated. This is a good thing to do when you're lubricating your Glock, is to get some oil on your connector to keep the pull smooth. Now, I'm going to install the Double Diamond without any oil just to see what it does. So we're going to throw that on there, push it in, and you'll want to see, if you look at it from the side in profile, you can see that the connector stands just proud of the trigger housing. You actually want it to do that. That's about what you want. There's a bit more bend than I'd like to see there, but we'll just let it ride for now and see how it goes. So we're gonna hook that back in. Make sure when you're putting a Gen 5 back together that the front edge of your cruciform hooks under the bent spring inside the trigger housing like that. There we go. Just drop the housing back in. And if you've never taken apart a Glock before, you don't need a gunsmith to necessarily do it. It's pretty doggone easy to do. So press that down in. We'll drop in our slide lock. We'll drop in our locking block. Now, when you're putting it back together, you need to make sure that the pins are lined up. So you want to pull it down on the trigger, push forward, do whatever you got to do to make sure that you're getting a nice round hole presented when you push this pin in. And if you're getting resistance when you try and seat the pin, then make sure it's lined up, because it shouldn't take much force to drive it. You certainly don't want to use a hammer. All right, there's 1 pin. There is the pin for the back. All right, got a mosquito flying around the house here. All right, we're put back together. Feels pretty good. All right, so let's look at the trigger pull. A little bit softer wall, a little bit more sponge, but that's actually a good thing. When I'm shooting fast, I like a rolling break, and this is delivering more of a rolling break. All right. All right, so we did about 5 pulls, and I hit the average, and it's pulling about 3 3/4 pounds. So just changing out that 1 piece has dropped the trigger pull weight by over a pound. And the quality of the trigger is much better. And the nice thing about changing out the connectors, guys, is it doesn't affect the reliability of the pistol with respect to the ignition. The striker spring is ultimately what's going to dictate how hard the striker is hitting the primer, and we haven't monkeyed with that at all. If we wanted to get super light, we could start monkeying with the striker spring, but for just a very basic polish and trigger job, that feels pretty good. So that is the Glock Double Diamond 3.5 pound connector. There's a ton of connectors out there, guys. If you want a 3.5 pound one, I'd recommend getting one that has, number one, 3.5 pound geometry, and getting one with a friction reducing coating such as MP3 like they have on this here. It's available at the Glock store. I think they're like 25 bucks or something. But that's what I got for you guys. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.